Hi guys, Mr. Sonnenberg here. We're talking about distance traveled during reaction time. A lot of it we're talking about vehicles and driving, and I think probably most of you have your license and you travel in vehicles, so this stuff might be useful for you and quite relevant. So traveled during reaction time. So question to you is, why are the speed limits different for different roads? So why would I go 110 on the QE2 versus 100 on Highway 12 out towards Bentley or Lacombe, Gull Lake? Or why would I go 50 in town, or even 30 kilometers an hour in a school zone or a playground zone? Why do we have this why can't we just drive as fast as we want all the time? So in a school or a playground zone, there's a much greater chance though that there's going to be a child or somebody jump into traffic. So they set a speed limit of 30 kilometers an hour, and that's just to ensure that we have enough time to stop and react and save the life of that child that maybe ran onto the road, or animal or adult, whoever jumped in front. So another question though, do drivers' reaction times change with greater velocities? So does the time it takes me to react to um, maybe a person jumping in front of me, does it change if I'm going faster? And yeah, probably not. So, however, though, the distance traveled during the time required to react will be much greater with high velocity. So I will require more time. The faster I'm going in that vehicle, I'm going to require more time to stop. My reaction time might be the same, but the distance I travel after I apply the brakes, I'm going to need more time to react. So imagine I was driving 80 kilometers an hour down a city street, so which we would say is probably about 50 kilometers an hour usually, but we're driving 80. So if someone decided to run a red light at the intersection just in front of me, there'd be no way I could stop the vehicle, right? Because it's just not enough time, right? We're talking 80 kilometers an hour. If I was going 50, maybe, but 80, there's no way. So reaction time and stopping distances we're going to talk about now. So sometimes in driver ed, and I don't know how many of you took driver's ed, or I don't even know if it's required. Maybe something you might have to let me know if you have to take driver's ed. I think it's just a choice, right? You choose to take it. But some of those driver ed programs, okay, they'll have a closed course where they'll have a driver travel going 60 kilometers an hour through the course, and then on a signal, some form of signal like a hand up, the driver needs to stop immediately, okay, and they need to hit the brakes. So what do you think happens when they do that? Well, the car's going to travel several meters before they stop. So they're going to see the signal, but the car's still going to travel several meters after they see it. Then the distance that the vehicle travels after the brakes are applied, so the skidding, okay, that's what was going to be known as the braking distance. So from the time the brake is applied and I put my foot down and apply the brake, that until the vehicle is stopped is what I call my braking distance. I'm just going to underline that really quick for you guys right here, my braking distance. Now, the stopping distance is going to include the distance traveled during the reaction time plus the braking distance. Okay, so my reaction phase right here, okay, plus my braking distance. Okay, add those two together and I'm going to get my total stopping distance. Okay, so if we're looking for that total stopping distance, what do you get? So what if you're reacting to a sudden obstacle on the road only 10 meters ahead of you though? So if I put something 10 meters ahead, which we know isn't very far, okay? If I was going 60 kilometers an hour, would I be able to stop in time? Absolutely not. It'd be impossible for me to stop immediately. I need time to stop, right? Especially going 60 kilometers an hour. 10 meters doesn't give me enough time. I'm going to have a certain duration where it's just going to react in my brain, and my body's going to allow me to react and hit the brake. And then once I hit the brake, it's going to take a certain amount of time for the vehicle to stop, right? And we know with brakes, we talk a little bit about momentum and stuff as well, where our brakes are going to, it takes time for them to slow the vehicle down, right? That friction to stop the vehicle. Then we also, if you look at your traffic lights, well, why do we have yellow lights? Wasn't it just red, stop, green, go? Well, we have yellow because that's set to last certain lengths. So it depends on the speed limit of the road. They're not all going to be consistent, but it just makes sure that people have enough warning time to when they see the light change, so they can react and then stop the vehicle and create less force right before that red light hits. So it just gives you enough time. So they actually change the amount of time that that yellow light is actually present based on the speed that you're supposed to be traveling. So that's why it's important to obey speed limits too. So distance traveled during the reaction time. So there's three things that we need to look at, okay? So the first thing is, what was the velocity? Okay, so how fast was that vehicle actually going? So if the speed limit's 50 and you're going 80, things are going to change. If a vehicle's traveling 50 in a 50 zone, then they should be able to react, of course, if they're not driving distracted and texting and, you know, trying to dig in their bag for something. But the first thing, like I said, velocity. The second thing is what we call distance traveled during reaction time. So there's two components to that second section. Distance traveled between when the driver sees the item with their eyes and then actually reacts and realizes, I have to react, I have to hit the brakes. That's one allotted time. Okay. Now the second time is going to be the distance traveled between the driver recognizing the need to respond and applying the brakes. So I see the object come in front of me. Now I have my reaction time. I apply the brakes. Now I have my braking time, distance. Okay. So we're talking about distance. The third thing is, like I said, the braking distance. So what was the distance traveled when the brakes are applied and then the vehicle comes to a complete stop? So those three areas you're going to want to remember, because when I hit the brakes, I might say, well, I hit the brakes immediately, but how long did it take for you to hit the brakes? Well, and then how fast were you going? There's a lot of different factors we have to look into. So when we're talking about velocities, reaction time and stuff, we have to understand, well, how can we prevent collisions in vehicles? And I know a lot of people, they get too close and they're following distances. They get too close to the vehicle in front of them, and then that's why we get a lot of rear end incidents and stuff. So cars that follow too closely behind others are at high risk of a collision. So no matter how fast your reaction time is, a vehicle takes a certain amount of distance to stop. So the faster it's moving, the longer it'll take to stop. So the greater the velocity, the longer it's going to take for you to stop that vehicle. So for safety though, and you guys might have heard this before, and this is a good note, you should keep following a following distance of 2 seconds behind the car in front of you. So basically, if I was to drive past, say, a sign that said 100 kilometers an hour, the vehicle in front of me, when they first reach, or when they reach that sign, if I went 1,000, 2, 1,000, then I should pass that sign. I should have a 2-second gap in there. And it doesn't matter what the velocity, if it's 50 kilometers an hour, 80 or 100, I should make sure that it takes the same amount of time to pass that sign. Because one, for our safety, but actually two, because following too closely is against the law. Like the police can actually give you a ticket for tailgating because it's dangerous and it's just an accident waiting to happen. But anyways, hopefully this information has helped you guys. This was distance traveled during the reaction time. Okay. Anyways, we'll see you guys on the next screencast. Bye.